So for the game Tiny Skyscrapers, we've been told that R, S, T, J, and K each live in exactly one of the three skyscrapers, A, B, and C, and each of those skyscrapers is at one of the addresses number 1, 2, or 3. So the best way to set this up is to think, okay, we've got the three addresses, 1, 2, and 3. We've got to designate A, B, or C as the building at that address, and then figure out who's going to occupy the floor, ground, first, or second. And clearly we can see we have 9 different spaces for people to be living, but only 5 pieces, so definitely some of these floors are going to be empty. And diagramming our rules, we can see R and S are in skyscraper A. Now we don't know if they're at 1, 2, or 3, but we do know they correspond with skyscraper A. We know that Terry and Jasmine can't be in the same building. We know Kyle is not at number 3. We know that building A is at number 2. We know building C's address is a lower number than building B's address. Now the first thing we should do is put A into address number 2, and then use that with rule number 5 that C is an earlier number than B to say, okay, C goes in spot number 1 and B goes in address number 3. So already we've determined which building names are linked to which addresses. And that's great because we know our RS block is going now into number 2 or building A. But we can only put the RS block below number 2. We can't actually put it on the board yet because we don't know if R and S are going in the first floor and ground floor or the second floor and first floor. Next, with K forbidden from building 3, we know that K is then going to go into addresses 1 or 2, or in other words, buildings C or A. And underneath the game board, we're going to put J and T are separate with an arrow with a line going through it, just to remind ourselves underneath the game board where our pieces can and cannot go. Question 1 wants to know which building could be at spot 3 and who could be living there. Well, we already figured out that building B must be assigned to lot number 3, and then we know K is forbidden from lot 3, and R and S are definitely going in lot 2. And the rules actually say that at least one person lives in each building, so someone has to live in lot 3. We actually know either J or T have to be in lot 3. And only one answer choice says building B and only one of T or J. Question 2, when we put J into the second floor of building A, then R and S we can place that block into the ground floor and first floor respectively. Then, well, what pieces are left? We've got K, who is forbidden from building 3, and T, Terry, who now has to go in building 3 because a building can't be left completely empty. So the must be true that falls out of this is that Terry is going to be in building B. Terry is going to be in the building occupying lot number 3. Now that we've finished the questions that tell us specific actions to do, we're going to move on to question 5 that's a completely determined question. And for question 5, we want to know how to completely determine the assignments of tenants to buildings. If we assign Kyle to buildings C or B, we don't know about the placement of J or T. We know they have to be separate, but we won't be able to determine where exactly they're going. Well, we know that R and S are assigned to building A, and we have to figure out J and T. They're kind of the most slippery pieces here. And if we latch on to the only answer choice that puts J down into building A, then that forces K out of building number 3, which means K is then forced into C, and we've got a least one rule. We got to have one in each building, and so T would then be assigned to building 3. Question 3 asks us about the possible occupants of address 2, floor 1. And we've seen in our previous boards that both R and S could go in that spot. And then thinking about who else we could put there, well, if we were to put someone like T into that spot, there would be nowhere for our block to go. So the complete list of who could go into that spot would just be R and S. And lastly, for question 4, we want to know who could go in building B, address number 3. But we know from our rules that it's not going to be K, and R and S are already locked into address 2, building A, so that just leaves J and T. And because of our at least one in each building rule, we are going to have at least one of T or J in building 3. And the board that we've diagrammed above is just one possibility. We can notice that K doesn't have to go in building 2, right? K could go into building 1. But the important takeaway here is that K, R, and S are not allowed in building 3. And one of J or T have to go there because of our at least one rule. And we know it can't be both because that's rule number 2. So we're going to have to put one of them in building 3.